What's up, everybody? On today's show, reaction to SEC Week 3 as we head into SEC Week 4. What's really going on with the Alabama quarterbacks? Are LSU and Ole Miss for real? Is it panic time at Georgia and Tennessee? We'll talk about it all with our buddy Chris Marler from the College or Saturday Football Uncensored podcast. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or enter our promo code LockedOnCollege for a free water bottle with any purchase. You will not want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Go check them out, birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Welcome in our weekly guest, our buddy Chris Marler, joining us here on Locked On SEC. Marler, how the hell are you?
Well, I mean, I think your listeners know at this point who my allegiances lie with, and I'm still recovering from Saturdays and that trip to Tampa that Bama took. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing well. I'm just glad to see that end.
That's where I want to start, because that's been the hottest topic the last couple days. Look, it was weird to me when they announced last Friday. It comes out that Tyler Buchner is going to start for Alabama against USF. And my thought was, I kind of looked at it and went, oh, maybe they looked at it and said, Milroe wasn't bad against Texas. He had a couple of mistakes, but maybe here's a chance with an inferior opponent. We could play the other guys, just see what we have. And if both of them stink, we'll just go back to Milroe. That was my thought on Friday. And that's kind of how it played out, right? We saw both guys work great. The offense wasn't great and all that. But then on Sunday and Monday, Marler, all these conspiracy theories start coming out about Saban did it to prove a point. Jalen Milroe had a bad attitude after the loss. Tommy Rees went to bat for his boy. He said, let me put Tyler Buchner in there. Just all these crazy conspiracies. The offensive line quit. They gave up because they said, we're not protecting any other quarterback but Milroe. I mean, what's the truth here?
I hope it's all of it. I hope it's some, combination of all of it, because that's the only way I'll feel better about it. So I will say, as a former athlete, my first thought was, I feel like he shut down during practice, and that's the only reason I could see him not playing in this game. Because here's the thing, and this is what Bama fans have seemed to skip over with most of this, is that game was not in hand at any point until the last few minutes of the game. That game was not in hand. And they were playing South Florida, who was 1-11 last year. It hurts me to even say all that, what I just said. That's insane to think with the Nick Saban team that game was not in hand. So I don't think it was necessarily that he was trying to prove a point or anything like that. I will say that if you're trying to find a leader or somebody that's going to get the team behind him, he did that. He did it in the most uncomfortable way possible for the fan base and maybe for the team, because Milroe gained more than maybe any player in the country this past weekend without stepping on the field. It was he became the starter without having to do a thing, because that's how bad the rest of that quarterback room is. And I sat there and thought all preseason, I think I even posted on Twitter like an idiot, Tyler Buchner is a former Elite 11 quarterback, a 4-star top 100 recruit, and he was awful. He was awful. And then the thing with the O-line, I know Josh Pate, a good buddy of ours, said the same thing about how maybe the team quit a little bit. He kind of doubled down on that today. I don't know if that's the case. I really don't. But I will say that it seemed to me as somebody that had been somewhat similar situation like that, when I played in college, which I felt like he probably, the only answer for this or reason for this, he must have shut down during the week, handled it poorly. Any of the criticism that he might not start, they were going to reopen the what do you call it, the competition. And then he wasn't benched, but they were going to give the other two guys the start, or give those other two guys reps.
Yeah, I just thought, I thought too many people blamed him for the loss to Texas. The two interceptions were not great, but he also finally started to make some plays. And it was a 1-score game at the end of the third quarter because of some big plays he made with his feet.
They were winning.
Yeah, and with his arm. So, to me, it was a little bit baffling. I thought USF would have been a nice game for him to bounce back. show we have confidence in you as a starter, go get us 5 touchdowns, we win big, and then you have your confidence back for the Ole Miss game. Here, it feels very like, hey, hopefully you can gather that momentum you had a couple weeks ago, and like it just feels a little clunky to me. I don't like how they handled it.
No, I agree with you, to be honest. And like I think it's one of those things too that people always like want to tread lightly on saying stuff like, "Oh, Saban obviously knows what he's doing," and I'm sure he does. Like I'm sure he has somewhat of like an idea, but I don't think it was handled very well because again, the game wasn't in hand. Like at some point, you got to put in the guy that's going to win you the game, and like you won 17-3 again. I mean, I just cannot get over how awful that offense looked and how awful they looked for the most of that game. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like I don't think the Texas game was his fault at all. You had these idiot Bama fans, which like they showed their true colors again. It's been a while since I've seen the meltdown like that, where like they like just the worst takes imaginable, handled the game poorly, all that kind of stuff, and just like screaming for everybody to be fired. But the thing with the quarterback situation, people saying that like Ty Simpson he should be the starter. He's like the offense looked good on him. Can you imagine what that Texas game looks like with one of those two at quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, it would have been an even worse blowout. So I think that you're right. The whole thing feels like disjointed in the way they decided to handle it because, like you need some confidence going to that Ole Miss game, which I don't know if that team has. But you know what? I bet they're angry, huh? Oh, yeah. I bet they're even angrier again.
Real quick, because we will get into the games this weekend a little bit, but just looking back this past weekend, I was saying it earlier in the week last week, Marler, that I was trending towards picking Florida to win against Tennessee.
Yeah.
By Thursday and Friday of last week, you should have listened to me. I was going to bat saying Florida's winning this game. It just felt like, especially when I kept hearing Kingsley Aguakin was coming back at center, and Trevor Etienne said, that's our field general. I said, oh, the run game's getting back on track for Florida this week. Now, maybe it's a shootout, but I didn't expect Joe Milton to play as poorly and the offense to play as poorly as they did at Tennessee.
Yeah, it's funny because I sat here and patted myself on the back. I spent all last week patting myself on the back for how accurate I was in that Texas-Bama game. And instead of doing any research maybe or actually figuring out like the right thing to pick this weekend, I was like, lock of the week, Tennessee. I thought Tennessee was going to destroy Florida. I thought they were going to destroy Florida because they were a better team and they should have come into that game, I think, and probably like they have a better roster. They're more talented everywhere for the most part. Like that was embarrassing. I mean, it was embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, you were spot on, man. You were spot on. And I think that like I just kept thinking that at some point Milton was going to hit on a few of those, but like the offense this is kind of what we talked about in the offseason. Like the offense is not necessarily predicated on the pass, but it is predicated on the run and explosive plays. And like if you cannot throw the ball downfield accurately, which Joe Milton has never done in his 11 years of being in college, he's never done. And we just all sat here and was like, but dude, he can throw it so far.
Yeah, it was funny. I almost thought Florida's approach, like the Graham Mertz approach of don't mess it up, don't throw an interception, protect the football, and lean on your run game. I almost feel like that should have been Tennessee's MO. It was like lean on your run game. It was one of the best in the SEC through the first 2 weeks. Like lean on your dominant run game and don't throw, gambles. But one thing's clear through 2 weeks, Marler. Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker. Okay, right. Now that we got that out of the way, now what do we do? How do we build? Right. You don't have to be Hendon Hooker. We just need you to be the best Joe Milton you can be. How does Tennessee fix this?
I mean, but like think about Heupel's offenses and what they've been predicated on and what they've worked with. Dylan Gabriel, great downfield passer. Like Hendon Hooker, the most accurate quarterback in the league the last 2 years, and especially downfield. So yeah, you kind of do need Hendon Hooker because I think if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be throwing all these damn bubble screens and stuff like that and behind the line and like a couple yards off the line of scrimmage. Because if you can throw it 90 yards, then why aren't you trying? Like that's the thing that's been so surprising to me is that like you got a guy that has the strongest arm that we've probably ever seen in college football, and you pride yourself on these like speedy receivers, but everything you're running is like slip screens and bubble screens and like what are we? That is like very confusing to me. And the other thing too is that like, I wouldn't put it all on Joe Milton, but Heupel got flat out outcoached in this game. He got outcoached in this game, and like I think he kind of got brought down to reality a little bit because he's not one of the top coaches in the country and maybe not the SEC. He had a really good year last year, but now it's a new season and like maybe this is the best thing that'll happen to that team, but you got a lot to prove on a lot of different places on that team.
One of my other locks of last week, I just said when I saw South Carolina was a 28-point underdog in Georgia, I said, look, South Carolina may not win the game, but they're going to keep it closer than that. And I didn't think in a million years they'd have a lead at halftime. But Spencer Rattler played an incredible first half. Georgia didn't. Kudos to Georgia. They made the adjustments at halftime. Yeah. Defense stepped up. Run game, they finally found it. Dejon Edwards, his first game of the year. They actually got a productive run game for the first time all year. And it was a good win for Georgia. Are we like – I feel like we did this with Bama so much. That's like you play a close game and suddenly we're like, oh, you're fallible. Like, are you're not very good. And it's like, well, no, Georgia's still good. They're just not what they were the last 2 years, but they're still very good.
Well, and the thing is too, one, Bama is fallible. So that's not the best example. But like, no, I think with Georgia, I get what you're saying. I think that like this is kind of been Kirby's MO, if you think about it. Like, and for whatever reason, they once again have a ton of injuries. And that's one thing I saw today. I saw their list of injuries and the people that are out, and it's crazy the amount of potential and returning production that they're missing, like especially from this offense, right? And we're not going to cut them any slack because they're the defending back-to-back defending national champions. I think Georgia's fine. I think the thing that impressed me most out of this was, one, Spencer Rattler was great. And Spencer Rattler made himself some money on Saturday, and we'd love to see that. That's awesome for him. The other thing, though, that elite teams do and elite coaches do and staffs do is that they make adjustments at halftime. And Georgia comes out and has like another shutout in the second half, which I think ESPN threw this stat up there. And I think it might have been inaccurate, but there was 36 halves of football in the last 73 regular season games that Georgia has shut out their opponent in one of the halves. That's insane. Okay. Like, so they came out and they were able to do that again. And like, kudos to Muschamp. And I know Bobo was coming on fire, but the other thing too, is all these slow starts they're not getting the ball a lot. You know what I mean? Like they're not, and I think there's nothing to worry about with Georgia because the way that schedule sets up in the East, you have a little bit of a test in South Carolina. Maybe you wake them up a little bit. Now you have to like focus. You'll get Auburn, and then you get pretty much a break until November.
Yeah, he is Chris Marler. We're going to talk on all the games getting into this weekend in just a second. More Locked On SEC right after this. And I want to remind you this episode is presented to you by our friends over at Birddogs. Look, Birddogs doing their part to make you guys look good. They're stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and the leg, giving you that truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts, look, it's still hot out all across the SEC land. And the Birddog shorts, they do that exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit better than any of those regular shorts that are made that stiff, restricted cotton. Birddogs, they fixed that issue. They got that cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches, and you won't have to sacrifice movement. Birddogs, functional for any occasion. You're going on a date, you're going out to hang out by the pool for a workout, lounging around, going to work, whatever it is, Birddogs fits any occasion, even an SEC tailgate. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Enter our promo code lockedoncollege at checkout. They'll give you a free Birddogs water bottle. It's a really nice one. That is birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for that free water bottle at checkout. And we promise you will not want to take your Birddogs off. All right, continue our conversation with our buddy Chris Marler from the Saturday Football Uncensored podcast. And Marler, as we jump back into it, we got an interesting slate of week 4 games. Well, funny. First off, everybody was saying, oh, these games suck this week. In week 3, every time you say that, you know you're going to get some games that are interesting. We had a lot of interesting games last week. And so I'm looking at some of these. We're going to hit on the undercard kind of first. But let's start 12 Eastern on the SEC Network. It is 3-0 Kentucky at 2-2 Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt with an inexcusable loss at UNLV. What are you doing there, Vandy? But Kentucky, Devin Leary looked good last week. Again, they haven't really played anybody. They played a close game with EKU 2 weeks ago. But Devin Leary looking the part. This is one where if you're Kentucky and Mark Stoops, you got to win and kind of really, I hate to say it, but avenge that loss to them from a year ago. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I think that's one thing that's going to be rough with Vandy this year is you've got 2 games that other teams that should not have to circle them have circled on their calendar, and that's Florida and Kentucky coming into this year. So it's in Kentucky, right? It's a home game. No, it's at Vandy, but ask any Kentucky fan. They say they're going to fill up that stadium with Kentucky fans. That's fair. It happens. I feel like every home game for them. But no, I think it'll be a good game for Kentucky. They're still trying to piece together. I feel like
a complete game on offense, right? Where they can get the run game and the pass game going. But I do think they've had a really good job of being able to put, like, you look at a couple weeks ago and Devin Leary puts, all 4 of their touchdowns were scored through the air. I love that. I would like to see this offense get going a little bit, because you returned all 5 of your top 5 pass catchers from a season ago, and you still kind of a little bit stumbled. Like I wouldn't say stumbled. You just haven't like been as efficiently impressive. I don't want to say dominant, but efficiently impressive as you would hope to see, or as we saw him a couple of years ago with this Liam Cohen offense.
Yeah, with Devin Leary's experience, when you had Tavion Robinson, Dane Key, Barian Brown, I thought they were going to be high flying. Ray Davis has been very good. He's top 5 in the SEC in rushing right now, just like he was a year ago at Vandy. But yeah, maybe they're still developing that chemistry. And if it clicks, Kentucky's going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the next couple of weeks if they continue to develop that chemistry. How about 4 o'clock Eastern on the SEC Network, Marler? It is UTSA at number 23, Tennessee. A chance for Tennessee get back in the win column after the loss in the Swamp. But this was a game preseason I was saying was danger territory for Tennessee. But UTSA's underachieved. Jeff Traylor, they've lost a couple games. They lost to Houston. They lost to Army. Their 6-year quarterback, Frank Harris, has been hurt. He may not play this week. He may. We haven't gotten a final decision on that. But This is one where Tennessee back home needs to – this is about themselves. Take care of business.
No, completely agree with that. So I am going to get roasted for this week, I'm sure, because in the summer I kept saying, I tell you what, man, in between that Florida and South Carolina game is a tricky game against a 11-win team from a year ago with UTSA. But like UTSA has not been what we thought they were going to do, not what the same team as they were a year ago even. And like you said, with Frank Harris being out, they've struggled mightily. So I think that it's interesting because the line is 20.5. It'll be interesting to see what this team does coming off a loss this early in the season, because I think in year 3 of hype, you did expect to go down to Florida and get a win. How does he rally the troops? And I'll tell you the other thing too I want to see is, like, how much does Nico play in this game? Because you kind of want to get him some reps. You obviously didn't get him any last week, and if he does play well, I don't know if it's good or bad. I genuinely don't know what that looks like, because if he plays well, like we've seen him do in the spring game and all that kind of stuff, we expect him to play. Like, does that put some sort of weird pressure on Milton? And does it make the quarterback room more unstable than stable? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a great thought. I had a Tennessee friend texting me saying last week, maybe get Nico into that game late, and it was like, well, do you really want that? Because what if he looks good and leads them on a scoring drive?
Right.
Then suddenly you got fans are all calling for the 5-star to get in there and play. So do you like Tennessee minus the 20.5?
Yeah, I think they'll cover 20.5.
Okay, and on Kentucky, they're 14-point favorites at Vandy.
Yeah, I would take Kentucky.
Okay. Man,
whatever the over is too, I would take that. I don't know what it is. It's got to be like, what, 54?
50.5 for Kentucky, Vandy.
Take the over.
Okay. Next up in the evening, 7 Eastern on ESPN Plus, it is 1-2 Charlotte at number 25 Florida. What a breather for Billy Napier. You get your first marquee win, and then you get to kind of take a week off. It's Charlotte. They are only 28-point favorites at home against Charlotte.
I mean, yeah, is there a hangover effect, right? Like, I think this is the thing too, where you want to see them stack games, and that's something that's like, I remember seeing this in the past, like, and I'll use Bama as the example, and obviously it's very different, but I remember like 2008, I want to say, they had that big win against Clemson to start the year, and then next week they play like Tulane, and it was like 20-6 or something weird. Like, is there a hangover effect after your first big program win under Napier? And what does that look like if so? Because I tell you what, man, like, this is now you can start piecing together some stuff, getting recruits there to come into the Swamp. The Swamp was electric last week, right? It's still a night game, so you have a great atmosphere. Like, this thing can start getting fun if you're Napier. So 28, I don't know anything about Charlotte except for their coach was pissed that he got picked last in media days. But I would probably take Florida to cover.
Yeah, man, and they'll be singing Tom Petty at the top of their lungs come fourth quarter. Another night game, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN2.
Yeah,
I guess it's the Trent Dilfer effect being at UAB, but UAB slow out of the gates. They're 1-2 and at number 1 Georgia. That line is 42. First off, I'm taking UAB in the points. That's a lot of points, but interesting because Trent Dilfer, NFL mind, former NFL quarterback, like, maybe he throws some things at Georgia. Like maybe he sees something on film that they might be able to throw trick plays, all that. I'd unload the playbook, but just kind of an interesting matchup here.
Yeah, the entire game should just be called like the Beta Blocker Bowl, and just like for people with high blood pressure, Trent Dilfer and Kirby and Will Muschamp. I mean, just like we're gonna be rising over 140, over 90 very quickly in this game. If you can tell, I went to the doctor recently, so all these numbers are reset. No, I think it'll be fun. You're still looking at your Georgia. What's the line you said? I'm sorry.
42.
What?
Yeah, it's a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. I wouldn't touch it if I was betting. I would not touch it. I mean, I don't know how bad UAB can be because you're really just trying to put up basically 7 points, most likely to cover here, right?
Yeah, they're rebuilding. I mean, remember, this was a really good program a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They beat North Carolina A&T week 1, and then they lost at Georgia Southern and lost to ULL. 2 pretty good middle-tier programs. So I don't know if that tells us a whole lot about UAB.
I mean, again, I would not bet on this game. I would lean towards UAB, but not confidently necessarily. You know what I mean? I think like UGA, we're still looking for them to piece together a full 60 minutes. It's going to be fun to watch this team gel because, again, as they get healthier, and you saw last week, and this is one of the things I love watching what Kirby does, is like he rotates guys better than anybody, especially in that defense, getting people experience. They spread the ball out more to better than anyone else in the country. You saw Ra Thomas get involved a little bit last week. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see how early the backup QBs get in, because I think you kind of need to get back a little bit more confidence going into that Auburn game. I still say you also want to avoid any more injuries, so I would take UAB to cover.
Yeah, a couple notes. Ladd McConkey still hasn't played for Georgia. He will not play this week again. So, like, maybe they're saving him for the playoff. Like, by the time they get to the
like
playoff,
lacrosse sleepaway camp or something like that. Like
Kirby's like, just go to Atlanta. Wait till we get there for the SEC championship. Then you come play for us. The other one, Brock Bowers, only 135 receiving yards on the year, no receiving touchdowns for Brock Bowers. I don't know what's going on there, but
the thing I hammered the under before the season started.
That is murdering Desmond Howard's Heisman pick of Brock Bowers. So I don't know what's going on there. The last one on the undercard, this one actually becomes a really interesting one. 6:30 Central on ESPNU. Mm-hmm. It's undefeated Memphis versus undefeated Mizzou from St. Louis.
Yeah,
a weird game, kind of not far from each other, Memphis and Mizzou, but a huge marquee win for Eli Drinkwitz last week, beating K-State.
Yeah, I love this move, putting it in St. Louis, because it's like, listen, Como's fun, but you know what we're missing? Crime. So let's play Memphis in St. Louis, and let's get a couple car break-ins while we're inside the game and tailgating. Should be a blast in the 2 cities that are basically Detroit of the Midwest and South. So I can't wait. Sorry to anybody who lives in Memphis. Anyway, again, hangover effect. What does Mizzou look like? Huge win a week ago. One thing I liked about that win was that the receivers and the skill position players all got involved. I want to say they grew up in front of us, but like they're not all young players like that. Luther Burden is an absolute problem. Brady Cook is he might not go. I know we're recording this on Tuesday, so it's like, is he going to be okay? I think he's got to be okay if they're going to win this game. But the thing I love most about this is they won that game against a ranked team, a top 15 team, and you still have meat on the bone in terms of like you can still have a chip on your shoulder because you're still not ranked. And then you also did a lot of things that you could have lost that game. You did a lot of things well, but you did a lot of things not to win that game that you can improve upon. So I think it's a perfect win if you're Mizzou. I think they beat Memphis. I think they keep this thing going, man. That defense has been fun to watch.
And cover the 5.5.
I hate that spread so much.
Yeah.
I hate that spread so much. I would take Memphis to cover the 5.5.
I'm with you. And here's the thing with Missouri. They beat Memphis here. They're at Vandy next week. They could be 5-0 hosting LSU in a couple weeks.
And LSU does not play well in Como. Their last one time there.
Yeah, they went there in a COVID year. I mean, I don't know if that's a real determination, but
that's the COVID year is the same as most years in Como.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think Mizzou wins, and man, Eli Drinkwitz, big contract extension. He's earning it so far. We'll get into the big time matchups here in just a second. More with Chris Marler. Want to remind you guys that this episode is also presented to you by our friends over at Jase Medical. Look, everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. And that's why Jase Medical is offering the Jase case. If you haven't looked it up, go look it up. The Jase case, it's JASE, provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you that peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand, and it's simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Do not get caught unprepared. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off when you use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase, medical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Get ongoing care from their physicians, and they'll answer any treatment-related questions. That's jasemedical.com/LockedOn. Go get yourself prepared today. All right, we continue on here on Locked On SEC with our buddy Chris Marler. And Marler, let's dive into it. We got some big games happening in the SEC on SEC games. Let's start with 2-1 Mississippi State at 1-2 South Carolina. This one coming to you from Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday night, Williams-Brice Stadium, a 7:30 Eastern kickoff on the SEC network. South Carolina, a 6.5-point home favorite. We just saw them put up a heck of a fight against Georgia.
Yeah.
And we just saw Mississippi State get their brains beaten by LSU.
Yeah, so this is perfect. This is like the Spider-Man meme bowl because these are the same two programs. The Mississippi State is the South Carolina of the West, and South Carolina is the Mississippi State of the East. Loved what I saw from Spencer Rattler last week, man. It just was so much fun to watch, especially in the first half. I understand what happened in the second half, but that was a really, really good half of football. And a really good job of being a leader there too. So Xavier Leggette's out, right?
Well, Juice Wells is out. He's got the broken foot.
Right.
I haven't heard anything on Leggett, so
Wells being out is a concern, obviously, because he's your top pass catcher.
But he missed those first couple games, and that's where Leggett stepped in and
right.
played admirably. So
So I think that going into this game, if you can stop the run, you can stop Mississippi State because they have just really done a good job of committing to what their offensive identity is going to be. And I think that like on the road, we haven't seen Zach Arnett go on the road yet. Like, how does that team look? I would take South Carolina to win because I think it's also kind of a must win for South Carolina. So I would take them to win and cover.
Yeah, I said that too. I think they cover. Like, if they're going to win, they're going to win by a touchdown. But look at what South Carolina's got up next. They're at Tennessee, home for Florida, at Mizzou, at A&M. Dude, you lose this one, you fall to 1-3. I can't find 5 more wins on the schedule.
No, it's better than we thought.
You can't go 5-7 and not make a bowl game with all this momentum you've built up the last 2 years. Yeah. So, yeah, I look at this one. This is a must-win for Shane Beamer. Zach Arnett maybe gets the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's weird, though, Marla. I talk about Mississippi State. They remind me a lot of Arkansas when Petrino left and Brett Bielema came in. And Brett Bielema was like, we're going to run the football with some big, hard-nosed O-linemen and some good running backs. They're going, whoa. That's not what Petrino's got on the roster.
No.
And it took him a while to build that. Same thing here. Like, Zach Arnett takes over the team and goes, we're going to bring Kevin Barbay, run a traditional offense. Well, no, you're set up to run the air raid. Why not bring somebody else to run the air raid? So it's mind-boggling. I don't know Mississippi State. I don't know if they know what their identity is on offense. But
I felt like they did. And then I saw this last week, in that LSU game where they got manhandled. Then you had 11 straight plays for 0 negative yards in a row. That's tough to do.
Yeah, it was just hideous. They couldn't do anything against LSU. Speaking of LSU, they will host Arkansas, 6 p.m. Central on ESPN. It's 2-1 Arkansas at number 12 LSU. This line ballooned, Marler. A week ago, this line was at like 8-ish. It's up to LSU minus 17.5 now.
What?
Well, look, it happens when Arkansas loses at home to BYU, who they're favored by 8.5 against, and LSU goes and pours it on Mississippi State. LSU looks like, the statistics say they're the best offense in the SEC. Mm-hmm. Remember, they put up 450 yards of offense on FSU week 1. This is looking like the best offense in the SEC, and if it is, they will win going away on Arkansas.
I completely agree with that. Well, let's also be mindful of the fact that 75 yards of that came in garbage time on one play in the FSU game. But you're not wrong. So, Arkansas.
Well, I bring that up because I brought up last week they put up 1 million yards on Grambling and scored 72 points. And somebody said, well, it was Grambling. I said, yeah, but what did Tennessee do against Austin Peay? They put up 30. If they'd have put up 70, it would be like, well, it's Austin Peay. So in other words, they're doing it. They're executing. But my God, was Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors on another level.
It was incredible. It's the closest thing I've seen to like a Burrow-esque game in I mean, since he left, really. I mean, like that first half was he couldn't miss. And this play in particularly, this was the best throw he had of the entire game. It was like just a go route that, like, I think it was like probably about a 40-yard pass that he hit him in stride down to like the 2-yard line. It was so impressive what he was able to do at every single level of the passing game. That was really fun to watch. What do you do this week against an Arkansas team that you had KJ Jefferson? This is a close game a year ago for a lot of different reasons. Man, you get to go back to Death Valley at night against a kind of a rivalry game and play for that damn 150-pound trophy. Whoever made that trophy 150 pounds is a jerk. But no, I think that like this game, what it will come down to obviously is not just the quarterback play. I think it's going to be like the rest of the offense surrounding him. And usually you'd say like whoever has the guy at QB is the one you'd want to lean towards. But I mean, KJ Jefferson can't do it all on his own. I said it last week on here. I was like, he's Superman, and you even kind of corrected me on it. It was like, yeah, but like he's not going to be able to win games by himself, especially not a run game. And I think that there's a lot of concerns if you're Arkansas in a year where they are trying to find. They're just in a very odd year of replacing 2 coordinators for the first time, replacing a lot of people they lost on defense, and then trying to keep up in a league that's continuing to get deeper and deeper and deeper. I'd take LSU, man. I don't know. 17.5 seems like a lot, but I don't. It's also, I mean, like you can't really talk me out of it. I mean, if you buy it down to 16.5, I would definitely take it.
2 things. Sounds like Rocket Sanders is going to be out again this week, according to Sam Pittman. And that hurts. AJ Green and Dominion, they've been fine. They've still been able to find a run game, but just inconsistencies, man. That's what we saw last week against BYU. Just Arkansas shooting themselves in the foot. And if you told me by year 4, Sam Pittman would not have the most dominant O-line in the SEC, I would have called you crazy. He's a hell of a recruiter, and that O-line is just not up to par with what it needs to be. And it could be Sam Pittman's undoing when it's all said and done. Other thing with this game, Marler, it's the ESPN night game. It's Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit on the call. I find that odd.
Very odd.
We're on like the biggest game each week. They're calling Arkansas.
So here's let me just get on a soapbox about this game real quick and just what's happening right now this weekend with SEC football. I am so pissed that this game is being played on September 23rd.
What is that?
An absolute dessert. This is a Friday after Thanksgiving. Wake up from your nap and turkey coma.
Always a cold game too. Always like you're cold. If either it's Arkansas or in Baton Rouge, it's always a cold game, and this is going to be 92 degrees.
Yeah, and I hate that. I just hate that. But the Herbstreit and Fowler thing is super weird. I mean, super weird because it's most likely going to be a blowout. Do you know that also that Danielson and Nessler are not on the Bama Ole Miss game?
Oh, really?
Apparently, they're doing like Iowa and Penn State.
Oh,
that's what I was told. I could be wrong, but
all right, I'll look that up and fact check you in a second.
Okay.
All right, we got 2 more games we got to get to. How about 3-0 Auburn at 2-1 Texas A&M? A&M about a 7.5 point favorite. It sucks this game so early. It's 11 a.m.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of the SEC Nation and a lot of those folks there. It's at Kyle Field, but 11 a.m. Central on ESPN. This one, Marler, feels like the Jimbo, like this is a must win for Jimbo because of the loss to Miami already. You can't lose to first-year head coach Hugh Freeze in the SEC. Hugh already kind of told the fans on Monday, look, man, this road is tough. I'm just letting y'all know we got a brutal schedule coming up, basically saying, like, we're going to lose some games. Bear with us. We're in this for the long haul. I just look at A&M supposed to be start to get healthy. They're supposed to get Evan Stewart back this week, Noah Thomas.
Yeah.
Connor Wegman's been great. The one problem was the defense against Miami. The offense has been good in every game. All the talk of Petrino isn't going to work. It's working so far. The offense has been good for A&M. So I look at this one and say, I think A&M wins, and I think they win big. I like Hugh Freeze. I like Phil Montgomery, but God, Peyton Thorne finally had his first good game of the year, and it came against Samford.
Yeah, that good game, by the way, he had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So, I mean, he put up a ton of yards. And I know he had 3 total touchdowns and 2 on the ground, all that kind of stuff. Great win, I think, for Auburn, right, at home. It's a fun one. Hugh Freeze has been kind of doing this a lot. He's been trying to manage expectations a whole bunch, like throughout like the preseason, I think now, and like really trying to tell a fan base, because that's a fan base that does not really get it a lot of times. And I've thrown this out here before, that every single coach since Pat died at Auburn, every single coach has either won or played for a title or gone undefeated because of what happened in 93 in their first 3 years as a head coach. Every single one of them. They're very used to not only having success, but early success from new head coaches. And so they're crazy for sure for firing people all the time and all that kind of stuff. But there's also a little bit of understanding or reason, I guess, behind it. I guess if you want to give them credit for it. Anyway, I don't think Auburn goes on the road here, which sounds weird because they've done really well in this rivalry on the road in College Station throughout the last decade. I don't think they're able to go on the road this time with this team. You just lost one of your best defensive backs. You haven't really seen the offense be great. Like, you struggled in your only road game. You struggled mightily at Cal, and I know that maybe that's just I don't know. It's an anomaly, but I don't think it is. I think you're right. I think A&M wins. I think they win big, and I think whatever the over is, I would take that too.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I like Auburn. I think they're on the come up. I think I like Hugh Freeze. I like Philip Montgomery. I just don't think they have the horses yet. Like Peyton Thorne, I've not been impressed with anything I've seen. Now, look, their offenses, their playbook may be good enough for them to play spoiler and go in there and ruin it. But I just look at it as Jimbo, who's already on the hot seat. You lose to a first-year SEC coach at home. That to me screams, hey, we're getting that buyout money ready, and you're done here. So that will be fascinating. Our last big game of the week, it is the big one. It is get your popcorn ready. It is number 15 Ole Miss at number 13 Alabama. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. Look, Marler, I've watched all their games so far this year. They beat the snot out of Mercer week 1. They had a close game with Tulane into the fourth quarter against Tulane's backup quarterback.
Right.
Pulled away late. Box score looked way different than how the game played out. And then Georgia Tech kind of gave them problems for a couple quarters before they pulled away and, really dominated.
One-score game in the fourth.
Right. But Jackson Dart, his running ability, all that. I just wonder, is this fool's gold again with Ole Miss? Am I being sold a bill of goods like I was a year ago when they started whatever it was, 6-0, 7-1, and then all the losses started to mount? But to me, Marler, if you're ever going to beat Saban, if you're Lane Kiffin, this is the one. If you can't beat him here, I don't know if you ever will.
Yeah, I think that the concern for me is if you're Lane Kiffin, you look at where the losses have come, right? They've all come on the road. In the last, they were playing a backup quarterback against Tulane. I understand they were ranked, whatever. That's considered an inferior opponent by most people, right? But they did win. It was a lot closer than that score said. Same with Georgia Tech. Well, I will say this. I think Georgia Tech is a much improved team and played really well. And they also have Haynes King and a couple former SEC guys in that offense and whatever. The wrong team's favored, just bottom line. Alabama, I'm late to the game on it because maybe I just was watching this whole thing with crimson-colored glasses, and I didn't want to admit it because I pride myself on trying to be logical and reasonable and unbiased and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I wasn't this time. I don't know. This is not a good football team. It's just not. And Ole Miss, I think, is going to go into Tuscaloosa on Saturday, and I think they're going to beat Bama. I don't want to say they're going to win big because that seems a little bit dramatic, and I think there's going to be some fight from this Alabama team. The defense has played well, but I just think that combination – I don't know if we've seen this, and I could be totally wrong with this. Have we seen a combination of the head coach is a former Bama assistant and the coordinator is also a former Bama assistant? Because you're talking about I'm being serious. If you're talking about a defensive coordinator that has just fought 5 years under that man, and then an offensive coordinator who worked 3 years under him that really got the second half of the dynasty rolling and did some tremendous things there. They know the tendencies. They know, and this is not the same Alabama team. And I would love to see Jalen Milroe come out there and light the world on fire. But I'm with you, man. I think that they kind of screwed up this entire process for him, and they could have gotten him some confidence going into this game from last week and all that kind of stuff. I don't think sitting the bench for 60 minutes and giving high fives and having photo ops where you're showing you're a good teammate is the best way to get confidence back. The offensive line is bad. Ole Miss's defense in the first 3 games is in the top 4 in the SEC in sacks and tackles for loss. I don't see what Alabama does outside of your only bright spot is maybe you hold them to a low scoring game, and that's not what Kiffin's teams tend to do. And in this game, I know Bama's done it in the past, but the guy that helped do that is on the other sideline now. So is Kevin still going to be able to do? I think the wrong team is favored, and I think Ole Miss goes in and wins.
What'd you make of Lane playing mind games already on Sunday going, yeah, it looks like T-Rob's running that defense, not Kevin Steele. And Saban's got to come out Monday and go, no, Kevin Steele's our DC. Like, he's already in his head.
And it's Monday. Like, we've seen this before where he goes into the week and he's like, he's the GOAT. He's blah, blah, blah. Like, it's he's retweeting people and talking trash with, like, people that we're friends with on Twitter. Like, not even the media. And I think he's going to – it seems like he's confident. And I don't want to sit here and do what Bama fans did all offseason and judge an entire game or season based off a smile at a press conference. But, I mean, he does seem very relaxed. He seems very relaxed. And I'll tell you, the scary thing here is the picture you have up here on the screen. And now he's finally got a quarterback, right, with the running back. And, like, he's got who can run. And Bama doesn't do well with that kind of stuff. I saw somebody post today on Twitter. They said they were, like showing – highlights from the LSU Ole Miss game last year, and it was Jaden Daniels, and it was like, oh, Jaden Daniels, look at this run up the middle that he had for like a 12-yard touchdown. He's like they don't do well with running quarterbacks. And I was like, first off, that was Bama's defensive coordinator there is now at Ole Miss,
right?
So like it's a different defensive coordinator for one. And in that situation where he ran right up the middle, Bama's offensive line, that's like a 3-yard loss. Like, Bama's offensive line sucks. They're bad. They are bad, and Golding will bring pressure. It's gonna suck, man. I hate it. I hate everything.
The good news is if Milroe plays well and Alabama wins, they're right back on track, right? I mean, hey, Lane, you're never gonna beat us. Every student assistant is getting their shot now. Sark, Jimbo, Kirby, but Lane, you ain't ever beaten Obi-Wan. I mean, that's what it would feel like if Ole Miss loses this one. So, betting wise, so if you were going, are you taking Ole Miss plus the 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 1,000%.
I had USF plus 33 last week, so that one felt
good for you. Good for you.
I turned that one off after the first quarter. Well, that one's covered. He is Chris Marler.
I had a prop bet that Bama would be tied with USF at the half, and I bought a new home with it. So it was a $5 bet, and I was able to win $1 million. So
he is Chris Marler, Saturday Football Uncensored podcast. By the way, I think you're right. I can't find CBS as of this recording has not posted the broadcast crew, but they have Ole Miss Bama's at 3:30 Eastern, and then that night is Iowa Penn State.
Yeah,
and that's the debut of Big Ten on SEC or on CBS.
Yeah, you had it right. Yeah,
I think it might be Carter Blackburn doing Ole Miss. Yeah, get ready for that one.
That sucks.
Maybe Jason McCourty. Maybe they throw him in the booth with him. Where's Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman? They're over at Fox now, so they can't.
If Tim Brando's on this call, I will. Like, I thought I was in hell last week watching the rain delay, that Bama offense, and RG3 doing puns for 4.5 hours. Yeah. I will be in absolute hell if Tim Brando is the most biased, unapologetically biased member of the media who pretends that he's not. It is hilarious to watch.
I love Timmy B. I think he's great. He's a national treasure. He should still be on CBS. He does a great job.
Brando sucks.
Well, that's your opinion. But I do agree on RG3. RG3 needs to go. Like, the puns, oh my God. Anybody with a name that is somewhat interesting that a pun could be used on, he's jumping on it.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, I've based most of my comedic and dating life off that, so it's fair.
What was with Buckner? The buck stops here. Oh my God, just stop, dude.
He did nuck if you buck, which I was like, that's pretty good. And then he kept going, and it was like, no, just stop. Just call him Byler Buckner so he leaves, for the love of God.
He is Chris Marler. Again, Saturday Football Uncensored podcast. Go check him out, and Marler will do it again next week.
Sounds good, dude.
All right, thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come on back tomorrow and join us right here on Locked On SEC.